That was a fun 6.5 days. Roma, they put us through the ringer, and just when it looked like the ship was about to be brought back down to earth, a late penalty from Artem Dovbyk gives them a 2-2 draw against Bologna. Of course, before getting into all of that, our patrons, thank you so much. Patreon.com/RomaPress, at Ice RomaPress, YouTube, Twitter, or X, Facebook. You know where to find us now. I will try to get through this. As you can tell, I am still under the weather, as is Andy.
Yeah, both of
And
us. This is murder.
yes, well, naturally, when you are ill, not often are you going to see any physician recommend watching Ice Roma football. That was the full. If you want to talk about the experience of Ice Roma, that was.
I think we've said it far too many times this season for this time to be valid. I think our words don't mean a thing if we say it. Basically, every single game that we've watched this season, it has been a Roma experience. In that you lose hope, you regain hope, you lose hope back again, and then they pull you back in. You can never you. I think what is most incredible about this team is you can't have enough of it, and at the same time you can have enough of it. Like on one end, you do enjoy watching sports. It's the weekend and everybody's going to work tomorrow, and so you want to just relax. On the other hand, the last thing you need is stress in your life, any additional stress. And that's what Roma give you. And I told you, John, the derby win means nothing if tonight you don't show up with the same intensity, if tonight you don't pursue the victory in the same way. And I think all of us knew to a certain extent that you would not be fighting for tonight's game as much as you did in a packed Stadio Olimpico, in the derby. There is something about this team that prevents them from getting exactly their second consecutive win in a row in Serie A. They've done it once all season long. We remember that, Udinese Venezia. And it's been, 2.5 months, 3 months since then, John. I mean, it's not. So we're entering 2025 with 4 points to our name. It's not too bad. Could have been definitely worse. It would have felt definitely much, much worse tonight if you ended with a loss. But at the same time, there is always that little bit missing. Especially when you're playing away from home.
That is a good summary of it. There was something missing. The intensity, that first half, it may as well not have even existed. That first half was very underwhelming. The second half starts slow. And I think from minute 58 to 65, 66, those 7 minutes, that perfectly, though, summarizes the deficiencies of this Roma. I mean, all of the defects, all of their weaknesses, everything that has plagued them this entire season, you saw in that very brief 7 to 8 minute stretch. You get Salamakers, give it Gol del Ex, which is something you and I say all the time.
And we've been on the receiving end of, so it feels so refreshing to finally have one of ours inflicted on someone else, because we've been, I mean,
so many times.
Zaniolo, Lukaku, enough. So finally tonight I get to experience what it must feel like to be a fan of a team that faces Roma and that has at least one player who had played at Roma in the past.
It was a great feeling. And Roma, they allowed us to enjoy that feeling. They allowed us to dream of an away victory for the first time. I will allow you the pleasure of saying it. When was the last away victory of AS Roma? Andy?
April 2024. Udinese.
I am reliably told
Cristante
that you've
goal. At
yeah,
the death. Remember, John, at the death. We were playing
the restart.
the restart from Ndika's incident, and Brian Cristante at the death gives us our one and only away victory in Serie A in April.
April of 2024. So let me do the maths. I have had a few of them. There are children being born in that time frame between
Oh
AS
yeah,
Roma.
I could walk into a church tomorrow and I'm christening, I'm baptizing left and right, and I'm like, when was it? When was it conceived? April. Okay, there we go. You know.
It makes sense. Now, in fairness, it could have been conceived. It's thanks to Brian Cristante. I'm sure many of them.
I would say that most children in April were conceived thanks to Brian Cristante. I think that goal in of itself did a lot for a lot of couples.
It probably did. Now, I doubt many of them thought they would have the actual baby in hand before they would see the next away victory of AS Roma. But what was the exact number of seconds that they allowed us to dream? Because Salamakers, he scores in what, the 58th minute?
Yeah, but they score in like the 59th?
I think it was either 59 or 60.
Yeah.
Okay, so 60.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 61.
Oh,
61.
Wow, 2 minutes, two full minutes.
Yes.
2 full minutes.
120 seconds of positive feelings of dreaming that the streak was over. And how many more for the penalty? 4 minutes after that. And that right there, you don't even have, even if you didn't watch the match, if you were not watching live, you could deduce a lot from just those 7 minutes alone and have a fairly good understanding that Roma went full Roma. Andy, we see them immediately after they score the goal, leading 1-0. It looked as if they were playing hot potato with the football, not knowing what to do, absolutely zero composure on the ball, zero maturity. And it takes them just a few minutes. All the good you did up until that point, it just vanishes, gone, disappears. And you now find yourself dreaming and thinking of a potential victory, ending this streak that is just lingering over your head, this dark cloud finally passing, dissipating. It's over. We did it. And by the way, we did it against the team that last season and once thus far this season demolished us.
Well, yeah, and they're the reason why we seemingly had higher hopes this time around, because they on the match that they destroyed us, completely dominating us. Roma fired Juric, appointed Ranieri. In big part, that first leg against Bologna is the reason why we have Hummels in the lineup, is why we are doing better than we did in the past. But hey, it again. If you don't keep that focus, if you don't bring that same Roma are just not a team right now that can afford to not give 100%.
I don't know how much time to spend on it because I don't want to beat the guy up. He had a great. Imagine going from last weekend to this weekend, Andy. Even Lorenzo Pellegrini. I mean, you want to talk of the embodiment of AS Roma this season to concede that penalty, which can we talk of the refereeing? I mean, is that I'm going to sound bitter and say, oh, I thought it was handled even before. We saw Pellegrini do the full rugby tackle. Where do you come out on this thing? Because here's my point of view. I had the displeasure of watching all of this on DAZN. If you don't have the Italian version, you are spared from some of the most moronic, inconsistent, nonsensical refereeing analysis of dear friend Luca Marelli.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. I think honestly, first of all, Luca Marelli has to be like one of the most unpredictable. Like he's supposed to be very, very neutral, very sort of very well read, stable, compassionate, understanding, wise. He's the
Yes.
guy that they bring in to consult on basically every single
Giving full
decision.
view of a decision,
He
removing
is,
emotion.
he is, he's just the guy that knows everything, sees everything, can read everything. But every time he goes from game to game to saying completely clashing things, contrasting arguments in favor of one decision as opposed to the other. Honestly, both, in my opinion, both penalties are like this game could have done without those penalties.
Yes.
Let's put it that way. It's not news that Abisso is a terrible referee, but then again, we'd have a much longer list of terrible referees in Serie A than good ones. Our good friend Giacomelli, I think, has probably retired by now, or is somewhere in Serie B or C.
He's on Twitter now, man.
I miss
He does the
Giacomelli.
Luca Marelli.
I
Yeah,
really
he
miss
does Luca
Giacomelli.
Marelli light. Yeah.
There you go. So listen, I think this game, we could spend some time talking about those penalties. It would have been a much better game without them. Probably a fair game. The one thing that I always come back to is that exactly, you don't have guarantees within this team outside of a select number of players. First of all, you don't have a guarantee that the team will perform 100% the way it did last time by preserving the same lineup. Mind you, this is the
Yeah.
same lineup. So Ranieri wanted to reward the team by giving them consistency with the same players in the formation. Then the problem is there's only select players who are able to consistently perform for you game in, game out. We know the usual suspects. A lot of the guys that are on this team so far have struggled to give you that same level of concentration, focus, and intensity. And then I have to say, I love Ranieri dearly, but at some point, if you're picking Zalewski and you're forcing him to play somewhere that he's not going to be any good at, over someone like Matias Soule for the nth time,
Right.
after saying in a press conference that Soule is the future of the club, that Soule is a player that Roma rely on, I can't. For me, there is it's not even something against Zalewski. It's something.
Well,
It's something that is specifically against this policy that Roma have of confusing ideas all the time. Because Zalewski hasn't
yes.
had his contract renewed since those talks with Galatasaray went into the toilet.
Yes.
Negotiations over a new contract never picked up. He was supposed to leave this month. Everybody was saying they was supposed to leave this month. That now there is the prospect of him leaving in the summer. Fine. But he hasn't been playing for weeks now. He hasn't been in the starting lineup since Juric left. Why is he playing over a guy that you publicly stated is the face of the team and should be the face of the team for years to come, because he's a player that you really see the potential in him, that he's here to stay, that he brings a lot of good quality to the table. So it's not even, I don't want to focus on this particular episode, but I think that captures the confusion that then really sets the team back whenever they have to go into a game like this with this intention of, okay, we're going to go and do the same thing we did against Lazio. Well, guess what? No, things change. The energy changes. You don't have your fans there to cheer for you. Some players are not really feeling the same kind of motivation as for the derby. And then you have these questionable decisions by Ranieri to exactly throw Zalewski into the mix, even though this is a player that right now is really not giving you anything. I'm not even kidding, John. You probably could throw 3 of your children out there. They'd be way more productive than Zalewski.
Yeah, and the other thing I come out on this too was Zalewski, because somebody did make this point in the group chat when we mentioned him. When they say, well, something has to be there because you have Mourinho, you have De Rossi, and you have Ivan Juric, and now, at least in part, Ranieri relying on this guy. Now, I That is true. I mean, two things can be true at the same time. It can be true that these managers are relying on him and utilizing him, but it can also be true that he's shit, and we have enough of the sample size. If the answer is Zalewski coming off of the bench, I don't. The questions we are asking are far more grave than I ever could have imagined. Because I cannot, in my wildest dreams, if you bring on Zalewski and you put him in the role that he went in, clearly you are looking for some creativity and some boost in attack. Is anybody picking him to do that over Soule? And beyond that too, it does. It has gotten to a point where he is almost sort of the whipping boy, where he is in a position before even coming out to the pitch where he's going to have to do a lot to be able to earn the praises of anybody. So I think even bringing him on is a disservice to the guy himself. I forget about the footballing aspect of it. I just can't comprehend. Soule clearly has done something. There is maybe this is something they view for him as a way to mature, to grow. I don't understand it, but this is a guy who single-handedly carried Frosinone to even have a shot in prayer at salvation last season is a miracle, because they were so bad. This is a guy capable of carrying an attack. He is capable of handling the pressure.
Yeah, leading a team,
healthy.
and obviously in a certain in a certain context. I'm not here to say, oh, just throw Soule out there, put him instead of Paulo Dybala. No, it's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying there's a lot of confusion reigning at Roma. The fact that the team has been doing better with Ranieri in charge doesn't mean that this confusion is completely gone. Because again, there are these things that emerge during the matches where you hear one thing in a press conference and then you see another thing. And I think that also, I'm not here to excuse the performances of certain players, but that also contributes to how up and down this team has been. The fact that, again, I could see it a mile away, John, that this tonight would have been an insurmountable challenge for Roma to get a second win away from home. At this point in time, no, this team is still not ready. Doesn't matter if they won the derby. Doesn't matter, really. It's just, it's so clear that this team can really, they lock in on one game, and then it takes them so much effort and so much energy to put a similar amount, not even the same amount, but the similar amount of focus on the next game, that it's sort of, that explains why we are where we are, why we have to question this team every single weekend, because they just don't do enough. You can see that tonight they were there. Salamaker scores, everybody's feeling great. It doesn't take much to just put your foot on the gas in that situation and score another one. Really, if you really truly believed it like you did in the derby, you could have gone and done it. But instead, what do they do? They lose that. They lose that edge that they clearly had in those opening minutes in the derby, which is the reason why you went up 2-0 in the first place. And that's why you won. And that's why you felt comfortable in the second half. You conceded a little bit more to Lazio then, but because you were in a position to feel a bit more comfortable. Roma tonight, they were not in a position to be comfortable. They were playing in a stadium away from home, a stadium where there were practically no Roma fans from the Lazio region, because they got banned following the clashes with Lazio fans, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so tonight, we all knew the circumstances were not favorable towards a team whose record we've spoken about at length. So I would be lying if I said I didn't enjoy myself tonight watching Dovbyk score that equalizer. Sure, because I was ready to see this team go home with 0 points. 1 point is nice, but I'm waiting for that extra step forward, John. I'm waiting for this team to go out there and say, no, you can't figure us out so easily. You have another thing coming if you think that we're not going to win tonight.
By the way, I am so glad you mentioned that, the thing of the Lazio supporter, or Roma supporters from the Lazio region not being able to attend the match. That is something so Italian. When you try explaining that to people of other countries, they look at you like trying to explain like the thinking behind that. It's, I still 2025. I look at the calendar. Okay, 2025, and this is still a thing. That's bizarre. Yeah, like it's so. It's if you go to the Premier League and try to explain it to some of their supporters, like of any team, like the idea of Liverpool supporters, those from Merseyside are not able to attend a match against Manchester United. It is it's incomprehensible to them. Not as if that would matter. Again, the Dallara barely has functioning plumbing,
Oh,
so
come on. Oh, come
I
on.
have a difficult time thinking that AS Roma supporters are
No,
going
no,
to
no. Obviously, listen, the whole this whole aspect.
It's so weird, though. It's weird, man. It's
It's
weird.
weird,
It's
and also
weird.
because I mean, I hardly heard anything about what happened before the derby, so I was a bit surprised. But you see, even the fact that we have to talk about such a decision, that yes, of course, in 2025 we see a Roma have to play without their fans because of some minor skirmish. I don't know, before a really heated match in Rome a week ago. But the fact that we have to talk about this, and the importance that it plays mentally on the players, because it does. Even Ranieri said it. The fans are our blood. The fans are our everything. We want to try and play for them tonight. We want to try and win tonight for them. Well, you see how that attitude changes immediately as soon as these guys are not playing in the comfort of the Stadio Olimpico with a packed crowd behind them. You have to get it out of them. It doesn't come out of them naturally. This anger, this thirst, this hunger for a win. You have to. It doesn't come out organically. You just have to drag it out of them. And I still wonder why, because it's not like these players don't have a personality. We have plenty of players with personality, plenty of players that have a lot of character, that get fired up for these games, and yet we can't find a second win in a row.
It is a bizarre thing. Now, I would like to point out, not that it gives any levity or makes us feel that much better. Did you see? Because I thought for sure. I mean, Lazio. Listen, if there was a team that has shown the things that Roma have not, the ability to bounce back, show consistency even against the smaller sides. Clearly, something Roma did in that derby rubbed off on Lazio. Did you see that brilliant display against Como? So that added,
Did you see that miss by Gendozi at the
yes,
it was hilarious. Again, you could have put your three children out there, and they would have probably scored at in Gendozi's place.
It was astonishing to watch. But this is something too that I also can't really get a. It's hard to get your finger on the pulse of, because you just said it. They do have guys with maturity. You have Mats Hummels out there. You have guys, Paulo Dybala. You have guys that have played on the grandest of stages, and you give them a lead, and it is as if you hand it to someone, a newborn baby, but they have like hands of lead, and they can't. They have no idea what to do. They have no idea how to keep it safe, how to take care of it, and they inevitably fumble it. And this is something that I said this in the patron reaction episode. That is something no manager is going to fix. That is something. We're on manager number 4 over the previous 12 months. Okay, this is something that eclipses managers. This is something that is not tactical, and it is something where you or I speculating onto what the actual issue is. It's a fruitless exercise, because we're never going to be able to understand or be able to get into these guys' heads. But at the end of the day, to see them do this, because Andy, we're at the point now, and you said it, where you said I'd be lying if I wasn't excited for the penalty of Dovbyk at the end. I often talk of the self-esteem of AS Roma supporters. it is never balanced correctly. It needs to be calibrated so regularly because we are either very high or very low. There are so many times where our expectations are up here when really they should be down here, and we never have a fair assessment or expectation of this team. I would say though we our self esteem needs to be a bit higher than drawing against Bologna. But the fact of the matter is, Andy, that is the level of this team.
When,
Two things
when,
can be
when was
true.
the last time we won against Bologna? That's a good question. Was it with Fonseca? Was it when
Fonseca, I think it
Brian
was.
Cristante said in an empty stadium, Porco?
Portugal, yeah, yeah, where again,
I think it was
this
that. I
country,
think it was like 2019. I think I'm not sure, but I do think that we
I
won that game and Cristante got suspended. So that's
because
2000.
everybody in the aftermath of that sent videos to the official Lega
I know,
Serie A
I know. Tagged
account
him.
of videos
Everybody
of
tagging
Buffon
Brian
saying, "Yeah,
Cristante. But
yeah,
the thing about it, John, is we're talking about 6 years ago.
yes,
Think about it.
yes,
6 years
yes."
ago, my friend, we were there. We talked about it, but that's 6 years ago. So um, I don't know. How exactly, like, where do we come out on this? Like, again, I want to. Having seen everything that this team has done this season, I get excited for Dovbyk
Yeah,
scoring the penalty. That's how bad it is.
everyone does. Everyone
Everybody
does.
does. Everybody does. Because even over the years, we've come to expect certain results in certain places. It's not to say that this year is just that previous years are similar to this season. This season is particularly bad, but I think this season brings a lot of the things that we've seen in recent years to the surface. It's sort of like it's like things floating up in the water like sewage. This season is practically Roma's sewage. The toilet blew up and everybody's dirty business is coming up to the surface this year. And so you go to Bologna at the Dallara. Sure, of course Roma should be beating Bologna, but do they? Like, when we say that Roma should be beating Bologna, when are we referring to? Are we talking about
Right,
2007, 2008, or are we talking about the time that Ivan Marcano was our man of the match in a game that we lost 2-0, with your favorite Santander scoring?
Santander.
So, you
Yes,
know, you
yes.
know, I'm just saying that there are expectations that perhaps have become unrealistic over time, outdated. The fact is obviously that Roma, no matter who they're playing against, at some point this season they have to start getting those consecutive wins. It just, you cannot. It's like Juve. At some point they will have to either lose a game or start winning games, because right now they're drawing every single game. It's unbelievable, Juve's record. It's I think it's 7 wins and the rest is just draws. So
Yes.
that's incredible. But you see these trends, at some point the team has to break them. At some point, these teams have to wake up. Roma are not the only team in Italy that are underperforming. I think this weekend we've seen a number of teams not do so well.
Everyone, yeah.
Milan, Lazio, even Inter, who won eventually against Venezia, still wasn't impressive. Juventus in the derby against Torino, 1-1. Okay, but at some point you have to change things. Ranieri has done well in the fact that he's prevented the team from sinking, from literally sinking. But there is an extra step that this team must take.
There absolutely is. It is so difficult to kind of when you after the derby, finally getting that positive feeling and expecting them to get back on track. Man, it was either yesterday or 2 days ago. There, one of the patrons, they posted the calendars of some of the contenders for top four, and they were plotting sort of the maths for Roma to get back into a top four fight. And man, you just want to take someone like that and just give them a hug. No, don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to yourself. And this is the natural outcome. Just days after they posted that, and I almost I almost wanted to use that as the prime example of there. I mean, there, people talking top four. We lost to Como. We've lost to Verona. This is not the Roma you think it is. This is a team is so underperforming. And by the way, I don't even know if we can even call it underperforming anymore, Andy. Maybe this is just their level. Yeah, I mean,
But that's what that John. That's what I'm
this is
saying.
it.
That's what I'm
Yes,
saying. Why are we diminishing? And again, I'm not being happy about this, but why are we diminishing a late penalty against Bologna, thinking that this is the exception to the rule? This is the rule. This is better than the rule. This is Roma actually going beyond the rule. This is Roma avoiding a loss at the Dallara. Look at last season. Look at what happened last season, okay, against Bologna. Bologna turned us into a joke on both occasions,
yes.
okay? It's been happening for years now, okay? I'm just saying it'd be nice to at some point break a spell, break a trend. Um, Roma have already done it in a way in the derby, because I think a lot of us feared that Lazio were going to come out guns swinging and Roma were going to be the same old lazy team on the other end of the pitch. Instead, we got a Roma that was ready, that was fired up. Okay, great. But then what's the next trend that I need you to address? It is this trend of building result after result. We talk so much about building a team, building a project, building a sustainable future, but it really starts with the here and now. The here and now, the small details, the things that you have to do well in training so that then you are able to consistently reproduce them from game to game. I haven't seen that with Roma. And you cannot aim big and long term without resolving these issues first.
That's correct. And speaking of, having or understanding realistically what the level of Roma is, hey, they're playing the team that is just behind them in the table on Friday. They faced Genoa, who defeated Parma earlier today, 1-0. It seems sort of at this point trying to preview these things because I don't deciphering matches between like Juve, the Derby, Milan. Of course, they mean more because it's against the bigger side. But from Roma's perspective, Andy, every match now, at least by the Mavs, is technically a big game when you're mid-table like this. You're 10th. You are 10th in Serie A. You do not get to, as I think they did at some points tonight, you do not get to discriminate what you consider getting up for this match, not that one. Maybe this one, perhaps that one. Getting up for the derby, but not getting up for tonight against Bologna. You lost that months ago. You lost being able to do that when you lost to Verona, whenever that was in the ancient history of this season. So with Genoa, it's just another one you have to win. I mean, what are we supposed to say? I mean, the last time we saw Genoa, what? That was the end of De Rossi, yeah? Wasn't that the final one that brought the death with the headed goal on the
Yeah,
corner, I
absolutely,
believe?
absolutely. It's that. You mentioned Hellas Verona. God, that was a bizarre game with Juric.
Yes.
God, Matias Soule finally gets his first goal for Roma, and what do? You squander this.
Put him on the shelf,
Oh my
yes.
God. And then the team loses. It's just, there's been so many bad moments that of course then you look at a game like this against Bologna with Dovbyk as the decisive penalty taker. Part of you wants to feel great, but then the other half, it's it,
Yeah.
it's really, it's kind of, I mean, really, I look at, because, and I look at other teams. That's why I mentioned Juventus, because I look at Juventus as, and on one hand, they're playing with a lot of young players, a lot of inexperienced
Yes.
players. They're building a young team with a new coach, blah 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 blah. But they are not building anything in the here and now. They're every time they come
Correct.
up short. They come up short. They come up short. At some point in time, they will have to break the spell if, like Roma, they want to get out of this. Because you can again. I just we have Ranieri being constantly bombarded with questions about the future. Will Hummels renew? Will Ranieri stay? Will the new CEO arrive soon? Will the new coach be appointed soon? All these questions aimed at something that is months and months away, but nobody seems to be asking questions about what's happening now. What's happening now? Why is this team not able to just take it over the line?
That's all we're asking. I don't know. We will probably be back. Instead of doing an episode before the match, we will probably come back after. That way we have probably an extra day to recover. And given what we've seen thus far this season, we will probably need every waking hour to recover voices and health, because this is the AS Roma experience in full. It's still technically not even mid-January. So 4 more months of this. Oof. I mean, what is there to say? Win against Genoa, please. Please. Because the prospect of winning 2 in a row, you would think, is such a banal sort of feat for any big team. But it seems like we are trying to climb up the mountain, roll the huge stone up the hill, and I don't know. It just keeps falling and falling and falling, and done so at the hands of not the suspects you would like it to be. This isn't against Milan, Inter, Juve. It's against Como. It's against Verona. It just constantly Roma slipping on the banana peel. The good thing is they can either make or break the weekend for us to some extent on Friday. The blessing or the curse, we'll see what happens. Until next time, everyone. Oof. Ciao.
Ciao.